Hi there, I'm Mark Hinkle. I am the co-founder of Triggermesh, and we are a serverless management platform. So how many people here today are going to a Kubernetes, containers, Node.js talk? Okay. Serverless implies that there's a lack of server technology, and we're talking about things like Amazon Lambda, Google Cloud or Cloud Functions and things like that. The technology that we're basing our products on is Kubernetes, which is the new cloud fabric for container management and scheduling. And the serverless extension is part of that project, championed by Google, is called Knative. But, sorry. What we do is we create an Amazon Lambda clone. So it is a serverless technology that runs on the cloud or on premise to allow you to deliver functions as a service. The thing that makes Triggermesh unique and different is that we provide portability across all clouds. So we give you the ability to pull your serverless functions and publish them to Google, Amazon, or onto our own cloud. And I'll talk a little bit about why that is interesting in a bit. One of the things that we will add to our product, or that will grow with our product, is a library of triggers. And triggers are those events in the cloud that allow you to pull functions. So for example, when you call Uber for a ride, it does a lookup of the drivers in your area. That's a function that it looks up. And it does a lookup of your account information to see what your background is, what your rating is, and if you have a valid form of information or payment. Triggermesh is developed by a bunch of guys who've been doing cloud software for many years. We've worked on the Zen hypervisor, Node.js. Kubeless is a leading serverless framework already, Apache Cloud Stack, and OpenStack. So our strategy is this. Kubernetes and Knative is the technology that we think is going to provide the serverless mesh for all clouds in the future. And it's being driven largely by a consortium of users in the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, as well as Google, which is driving Knative as their serverless plug-in to that framework. We are open source guys. All of us have contributed significantly to open source. We plan to contribute to the upstream packages in Kubernetes and Knative, as well as appropriate, we'll open source technology that speeds adoption. But our core product from day one is a SaaS offering and a proprietary software package. The SaaS offering allows us to actually see what those development patterns and usage patterns are and actually address and add features very quickly. The on-premise will mirror those features and functions, but we feel like the SaaS offering, A, is important because that's the way cloud consumers are consuming software, and B, it does give us the ability to move quickly. Now, there's two terminologies around serverless. Serverless implies there are no servers, and when we say serverless, we mean Amazon Lambda, we need Google Cloud Functions and Azure Cloud Functions. Functions as a service, or FaaS, indicates that there is that same computing paradigm, but you are developing that software via, or managing it on-premise with your servers. Our initial software has a few features that are, we believe, critical and make it scalable, and over time we're going to incrementally add features rather than do big product releases. So a little bit about the team. My co-founder, Sebastian Gozguan, is a PhD in comp sci. He's one of the leading experts in Kubernetes. He's been a cloud architect for numerous companies, Bitnami, Citrix. He is the developer of Kubeless, which the new stack has recently named as the most popular open source serverless framework, or actually serverless framework, period. We have background as open source committers, as I've mentioned, and he's a published and a respected author in the space. Myself, I most recently ran the Node.js Foundation, which is probably the world's most popular serverless technology, #1 workload and initial workload for Amazon Lambda, for Pivotal's cloud, or #2 on Pivotal's cloud, and #1 on Google, et cetera. And IBM's OpenWhisk cloud, or now Cloud Functions. And I have a background in taking products to market and having successful exits. Before that, I was the VP at Cloud.com, which was acquired by Citrix for $300 million. Xenos was another company that started with $400,000 in revenue and ended up at $20 million in revenue in open source management. We also have 5 contractors around the globe. In a nutshell, this is what Triggermesh does. It publishes a function from source control to our cloud, then it can be pushed out to Amazon or Google, or it can be executed in our cloud with Amazon, just as it would be in Amazon Lambda. And take advantage of our trigger library, which are going to kick off those functions and allow you to consume those functions repetitively across our install base, or reuse them in your own cloud on-premise or in Amazon or Google Cloud Functions. This is the obligatory, we do have a product, but we don't have enough time to do a demo slide, so we started working on this in July. We have this deployed, and we're working on deployments throughout a few of our customers right now. Because of the time constraints, I'm going to switch through to a little bit about where we are and where we're going to go. So right now we're seeking funding. We have our minimum viable product out right now. We will launch our company publicly in 2 weeks on Halloween, or next week on Halloween. We want to get to our 1.0 product launch in March, and then accelerate our customer acquisition, and then we have a channel go to market. So last month we actually officially incorporated. Within our first 3 weeks we closed our first deal. It's $170K in bookings. We have our second customer right now, which is SAP. We're talking to quite a few other companies. Mainly they're strategic in funding our development, as well as something that we can insert into our product. And that's pretty much where we're at right now. We are seeking funding. We're seeking funding to get to our 1.0 product, which we are very confident will come out in March. And based on our product launch in the next couple of weeks, it may change our plans. We anticipate a very good amount of industry feedback, and we think we're going to get a lot of inbound. Everything so far has just been quiet word of mouth. So we feel like the tide is going to turn as soon as we launch on Halloween. So that is pretty much us, and thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, big hand for Triggermesh. Now it's time for our panel of judges to pose their questions to Mark about Triggermesh.
So why now the right time for the product?
Sure.
Why wasn't it right a year ago, or why will it not be right a year from now?
There's 2 things. Number one, this is Kubernetes, and is one of the first technologies that has been that we feel like will be adopted across the cloud. There are other precedents, things like OpenStack and such, which was not nearly as democratized or developed across the whole industry. Number 2 is the evolution of cloud computing into the serverless space, and specifically we see more and more event-driven programming happening that is driving, not as a total revenue number, but as a % of growth in the cloud space as serverless. And there's a lot of desire for people to consume serverless on multiple clouds. So we're cross-cloud, preventing the lock-in as this industry grows.
Thanks, Mark. With GitHub coming on as your first customer, did they come on?
GitLab.
Oh, GitLab. Ah, okay, that makes sense.
They're the number 2 in that space.
Okay, sure. Did they come on before your MVP was developed? And if they did, what shift will you have in MVP afterwards?
So they came on as we were developing our MVP. And actually, the reason they were such a good match is the functionality that they needed. It was a common feature set with what we were developing anyhow. It's actually a much simpler feature set, but what it is allowing their users to do is deploy the function. So GitLab has about 100,000 unique open source projects. Anybody that has a function that they want to publish to a Knative or Kubernetes can publish that. That was one of our features. That's the one they're going to take advantage of first. The second one is the ability to publish to any cloud, which will be made available to every single one of the GitLab users.
So Mark, on the market adoption rate, you've seen enterprises really just starting to containerize and adopt Kubernetes as an orchestration layer, and you could argue that doing function as a service is a next step. I'm interested in your take on, I don't think of GitLab as a traditional enterprise.
Right.
So are you going after web-based companies and saying, hey, look, we abstract away the underlying serverless capability from the hyperscaler so you can do whatever you want, and that's the value prop? Or is it you go to enterprise and say, this is the next step on the journey, you should start working with us now, and you do that in conjunction with like OpenShift or Cloud Foundry or something like that? Can you talk a little bit about that dynamic?
Sure. So there's two parts to that question. There's actually, we feel like the evolution, so there was infrastructure as service, which moved rather slowly, and then platform as a service is sort of a stopover. I feel like serverless is the manifestation of where the cloud market has been going for quite some time. So we think that each one of these steps is growing faster than the step before. We feel like that the specialty cloud providers, and we're thinking about people like SAP and DigitalOcean and people that aren't part of those big three, are going to be serving more serverless functions to a large variety of users, and those will be the toe dippers. So they will be people that are in big enterprises, but they're starting out with serverless. So we want to establish ourselves as a management platform and serverless early, and we want to use those specialty cloud platform providers as sort of a channel to get them on our platform. We also believe that as inside the firewall, people are going to get, there's more and more self-service IT. They're more developer-driven than they were 20 years ago. IT is a core competency in so many other places. And the serverless paradigm of delivering serverless capabilities is what these developers can consume in a more self-service manner, and it speeds their time to value from development.
I have a question about Knative or native. I'm
Yeah,
not sure how you
the pronunciation is Knative.
Knative.
Yeah.
So this is the Google-led project that I guess builds on top of Istio and kind of has a
Yeah.
serverless abstraction like an event.
Yes.
Event middleware. Is that a project that you're going to be contributing a lot of upstream engineering resources to and sort of try and control and get a lot of influence around? Or what's the investment sort of dynamic there in terms of contributing to Knative?
Yeah, so we will want to have influence by our participation there. And when they announced Knative, they actually quoted 3 companies. They quoted Pivotal, Red Hat, T-Mobile, and my partner Sebastian from Triggermesh is having the vision for where this was going. So we want to get there for influence. There are some things that we will be doing to actually contribute on behalf of our partners. One of our potential partners wants to enable advanced features in their hardware that's running Kubernetes-based clouds. Those kinds of things we'll do work for hire, and we'll extend our product where appropriate. But we will want to be in the cloud computing, the Cloud Native Computing Foundation is where the events working group is, and the events are really that standardization around events and triggers is really what's driving the cloud and specifically the service industry. So standards groups, which I used to be a executive at the Linux Foundation. My colleague runs the CNCF. Will participate there, and where appropriate. What I plan to do is, rather than try and build a brand around a open source technology and monetize it, which I've done many times before, is actually pick the technology that is going to have the broadest industry use, and then augment that in a way that makes sense for us as a company and for the project. It's the Nash equilibrium for open source that so many people miss. All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for our third presenter of the evening, Triggermesh.